Hey everybody, today I wanted to talk about my experience with shadow work and what exactly it was that I did. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel To Be Brokenly Spiritual. My name is Kelsey. Today I wanted to talk about my experience with shadow work and how I did it and how I got to where I got to be able to help other people with shadow work. So in my experience, I started randomly, just like most people's spiritual awakenings. It was very random, very whatever. But I had an experience where I realized that some of the things that I had been eating were making me angry. I became more irritable, and this was after my spiritual awakening, which I changed a lot of things during my spiritual awakening. I changed the way I ate, what I watched, what I listened to, things like that. And what happened is I was eating sugar, and I would get really irritable when I would eat sugar, and then I cut it out. And it was during a conversation that I had with my naturopath at the time that she had said something to me. I don't remember what it was, and it led me to the conversation about my anger. And from this conversation, I started to cry, and I said to her, I said, but I'm actually not angry. I said, I'm all these different things. I'm lonely, and I feel abandoned and forgotten, and like I just said all these different things. And it was the first time in my life that I had acknowledged anything other than the two emotions that I was taught, and that was to be either elated and absolutely happy, nothing can bring me down, or absolutely irate. And so from there, I started to view my emotions, and I started to validate my emotions, and I started to go through and acknowledge them instead of just letting my two predominant emotions take hold of everything. And so in that, it led me to my first two memories. And my first memory is my sexual assault, and my second memory is an experience I had with my father. And I meditated on these two things in particular, but for the beginning, I was really focused on that situation that I had had with my father when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And what happened is I would meditate through how I remembered it happening, and then I would meditate through how I had wished it would have happened. And in that, it led me down a path for 5-6 months total, I think it was, of meditating on this until I finally had a breakthrough, and I was standing in this black void. I was woken up at 3:30 in the morning, I think it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and something told me to meditate. And when I did this, again, I went through it how I remembered it, and I didn't even finish going through it how I would have wanted it to play out, and I'm standing in this void. And in this void, I'm just standing at the age I was, which was 29, and my father at the age that he was at the time, and I don't honestly remember how old he was at the time. So in this, I had a conversation with my father, and I had said to him, I don't want to be angry anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to do this. I can't do this anymore. And one of the last things I had said to him, I don't remember how long the conversation was between he and I. And again, this is during a meditation. This is not an actual tangible conversation. But one of the last things that I had said to him was, you know, you don't have to be angry anymore either. You're okay. You're safe. You don't have to be angry anymore. And in that moment, I had the most amazing experience of my life. If anybody has ever seen the movie Click, they have a scene in there where he's standing in the menu of his life movie, and he clicks on scenes and everything comes whisking by him, and he's looking at all these different scenes, and that's kind of how this happened. As I was standing there, and all of a sudden these memories just started to flood, and they came in that same exact way, where it was they were coming this over my shoulders and then past him, and then they just kind of lined up behind him. It was the first time I could remember my father being human. And that's not a jab at my dad. I'm just saying that this is what I remembered. And I had the most amazing breakthrough of my life. None of that was led by anybody else. I read a paragraph once out of a book that told me how to meditate on a situation, and that was all I went on. And I just did it for months and months and months. That was my initial experience with shadow work. And then the next thing actually is more recent, where I had meditated on that first memory for quite an extensive amount of time. I think it was about 1.5 years. And then my guides and source, God, whatever you call them, and my angels and ancestors, whatever, they like to pick the most inconvenient times to work with me. And one of those times just so happened to be when I would be driving my son back and forth to therapy. And at that time we were driving a lengthy way back and forth. And it was while I was driving to therapy, they put it right there in front of my face. They were like, hey, we got to do this now. And I was like, but I don't want to. I'm driving. This is really inconvenient. And they were like, well, we're not having it. So I was like, well, okay, well, I guess I have no choice. So anyway, I'm driving, and I had to play it through how it happened and play it through how I would have wanted it to happen. And I, again, after this time I played it through how I would have wanted it to happen, I ended up in that same black void. But this time I wasn't standing across from my father. This time I was standing across from myself. And I was huddled in a ball on the floor, curled up, bawling my eyes out. And it was me at 2. It was me at 2. And this was a very difficult conversation to have. It's still sometimes difficult for me to talk about because it might cause embarrassment for other people, but it's not intended for that. But as I stood there across from myself and I looked at myself laying on the floor, curled up, she didn't speak. She just showed me. And I heard her speak, but she did not speak, but I could hear her. I could hear myself. Little me at 2 years old, squeaky little cute voice. I think this is a difficult thing for me to talk about because I really still struggle with a lot of the things that resulted from this experience in my life. But she said to me, how did this happen? What's really funny is I talk about this often, But for some reason today it's difficult. I think it's because I am actively working through some things that came up recently and are, oh God, really strongly stored in my sacral. And I've been actively working through these things, and this is the first time that I'm doing this, and I am trying to remove this emotion and set myself free from this. So, sorry, I'm having a moment. So, shadow work at its finest, guys. But anyway, so as she was laying there and she didn't say anything. I just heard her say it. I don't know if it was, I don't know how to explain it. It was, she did not open her mouth. I did not open my mouth. And she laid there and I heard her say, how did this happen? How could this happen? Where were they? And then she showed me her abandonment. And that's where all of her abandonment issues started. That's where all of my abandonment issues started. Because I wasn't protected. She said to me at some point, and I don't remember the context because like now that I'm thinking back on it, she was still laying on the floor, but there was definitely a face in front of mine when I had this conversation, and it was, this will never happen to your child because of me. And it explained, like, I homeschool my son. I am nobody watches my child, nobody. I get nervous when anybody does. Literally anybody. Doesn't matter who it is. I get nervous. And she said that it was because of her. And I know that. And it's like I'm actively working through this on the screen. There are two things that have come up during this video for me. And I'm not gonna lie. Oh, God. Posting this video is going to be ridiculously difficult for me because I cry easily. I feel emotion easily, but it's not necessarily this raw. Nobody except for my husband and my one friend and my aunt. That's it. I don't show vulnerability. So This is going to be hard. In this, oh God, in this video, or in this recording, what I've been showed is that I am so grateful for her. Because I've never been perfect, but it is this experience in my life that is what has made me ridiculously cautious with my child. And I won't say that like I'm like a helicopter parent, because I am far from that. But I'm grateful to her. Because even when shit was going crazy in my life, the person who was always in the forefront of my mind 100% of the time was protecting my child. That was my person that was always in front of my mind. And although things that I did weren't exactly wise, I don't have to defend myself. I don't have to defend myself because nobody was in my shoes. Nobody's ever been in my shoes that knows me. So, I don't have to defend myself there. The other thing that I was just showed was that I have an unbelievable amount of shame. And that I fear bringing shame to people. And I feel like I have to carry this for myself. And I don't. I've done a lot of unwise things in my life. To other people, they don't look nearly as ridiculous as what some people have done, even some people in my own life. But that doesn't mean that they weren't bad. But sitting here right now, having even just processed that, I have no reason to be shameful of any decision I've made in my life, because in that moment, I did what I could do to survive in every situation. In my household growing up, in my relationship with my ex-husband, in different friendships that I've had, work relationships, being goofy. One thing that I have carried with me for a very long time is the embarrassment of things that I have said, because I've always been very blunt and I just kind of say things that are right in the forefront of my mind, and it didn't matter what it was. It's really funny that this just came up. Well, that got a lot more real than I thought it was going to. So, oh God. You know, I re-recorded this because of the fact that my last video was how long was it? I think it was 17 minutes long. And I was like, oh, that's too long. So let's make a friggin' 28-minute video. That's okay. Let's make a friggin', I don't even know how long this video is. Because I gotta edit out all the parts where I'm like sobbing my eyes out, so. Well, that being said, now you have a little bit of an idea of what the heck shadow work looks like. I have been working on these things actively. You have to focus on them, guys. You have to make them the forefront of your focus in order to be able to move anything. Reality is if you focus on conquering something long enough, you're going to be able to. If you focus on moving something long enough, you're going to be able to. And it's just that much more in the other direction as well. If you focus on only the pain from that situation, not the victory, then you're only going to see the pain. And you're not going to have a release. And you're not going to have any of these other things if you will not surrender. The most difficult thing that you'll have to do in your life is be vulnerable. And fortunately, you could be vulnerable with people that you know. For whatever reason, I don't know why. I've been called to show people a walk. I've been called to show people something that I so desperately needed when I was drowning. And that was for somebody to show up in all of their defeat and all of their brokenness, their shame, and bear it all. If you made it this far, thank you, because I'm not gonna lie, this is really embarrassing. I'm really struggling with this. But I also know that there was a reason why I had to re-record it. And I thank you for being that for me. And I hope that I can be that for you. My goal and my objective in everything that I've done thus far has been to make space. Make space for people who are actively struggling. I never want to show up like I have all my crap together. I don't. Because I don't. So, that being said, I have a lot of editing to do. I am so embarrassed. But that's okay. It's totally fine. God almighty. I probably won't even post this. I will. I will. Because I feel like I have to. And yes, I'm having a pep talk with myself. Breathe. So, all that being said, this crap is really hard. Shadow work is not for somebody who doesn't want to be honest with themselves. It's not. It's not at all. I've had to face some really horrendous things to get to where I am, that I have done. I've done some shitty things. And it's definitely not for people who don't want to be honest. It's most definitely worth being honest. If you want any help with this, I have a program that I offer that I help people to find their largest shadow. And it is an extensive program. It's only a couple of sessions, but I don't waste time. I want to get to the point. So if you want to work with me, I would love to see if it would be something that we could do. And it will start you on a journey that will be the hardest journey you've ever made and the most important journey you've ever made. Because when nobody else showed up for you and nobody else has shown up for you, you have no other option but to do what you keep expecting other people to do for you. Be your own hero. Set yourself free. Save yourself. I'm here to help. You are invaluable. I will see you next time. All my love.